So what on earth is going on in Lebanon? Officially, there's a ceasefire. You might have heard that President Trump announced before the weekend that the ceasefire between Israel and Lebanon would be extended for 3 weeks. I find that whole phraseology kind of ridiculous because Israel is not at war with Lebanon. Israel is at war to liberate Lebanon from Hezbollah. Well, that's not why they're doing it. They're doing it to defend Israel from attacks from Hezbollah. But Hezbollah isn't Lebanon. Lebanon is occupied territory for the last 40 some odd years under the occupation of the Iranians through their foreign legion called Hezbollah. By the way, I should point out something that no one ever mentions. I don't like pronouncing it Hezbollah the way many people do in Western media. It's in fact a compound word. It's really two words, Hizb Allah, which means the party of Allah, the party of God. Okay, that's what the name is. I think we should start calling it Hizb Allah again because it will remind people that this is a Muslim organization that believes that they are doing the will of Allah, Hizb Allah, okay, the party of Allah, Hezbollah. Anyway, what we're going to do in this video is we're going to do an update on what on earth is going on in Lebanon, including a very important announcement from Prime Minister Netanyahu from just a few hours ago. And but let's start it. Let's start it with a clip of the great Colonel John Conricus, one of the who's a phenomenal spokesman. He used to be a spokesman. He's a retired colonel. Used to be a spokesman for the IDF after a long and storied career in combat. And he currently works for the Foundation of the Defense of Democracies. And he appeared on Erick Stakelbeck's show. And and he gave a little update on Lebanon. So let's do that just to level set and get us started with this update.
To Israel and Lebanon, Hezbollah country. And Jonathan, this is crucial, obviously. Look, Israel's been hammering Hezbollah in Lebanon. There's a ceasefire now. Lebanese and Israeli delegations coming to Washington. I think President Trump may get involved even. Yeah, so what is the latest there? And why is this such a crucial piece to the broader picture with Iran?
Well, what's happening on the ground is that Israel has actually created a buffer zone here where you can see that Israel has basically told the Lebanese authorities that this area, which is Lebanese territory, where there are Lebanese villages that Hezbollah used in order to attack Israeli civilians. We have Israeli civilians in kibbutzim and towns, all in these areas. They were attacked on October 7, and they were attacked just a month ago. And what Israel has now said to the Lebanese government is, until you tidy up your home and make sure that Hezbollah doesn't use Lebanon as a launch pad against Israel, we are going to remain inside. So even though this is the border, this is where the actual deployment of Israeli troops is. And at the strategic level, that is supposed to translate into pressure on the Lebanese government to do what they have committed to doing a long time ago. And that is to get rid of Hezbollah and at least take away their weapons. Now, hopefully this will be a temporary deployment and Israel won't have to stay here for too long. Yeah. But I mean, when you think about the safety of Israeli civilians living so close to the border, it's kind of a non-negotiable situation because if you live here and you have Hezbollah terrorists here, that's not a situation that you can endure. That's why Israeli troops need to be deployed here. Hopefully, we'll have American leadership, American diplomacy that'll pave the way. Again, peace, reconciliation. There's already these words being spoken for the first time in history. Lebanese leaders are saying, let's have peace and border crossings between Lebanon and Israel. Let's do trade. Let's do things that are positive instead of only talking about war and fighting. But the condition is that Hezbollah is removed of its weapons. If that doesn't happen, all of the positive things that we've spoken about, they'll just be pipe dreams because Hezbollah will drag Lebanon back into Iranian-oriented politics. Whatever happens for the region happens in Lebanon as well.
Yeah, Iran, the head of the snake, Iran needs to essentially surrender at the end of the day, in so many words. Hezbollah needs to disarm. Then over in Gaza.
Okay. So before we go on with anything else, I just want to comment on Israel holding this territory in South Lebanon that you see here. Because there are those in the media who will say, well, Israel's illegally occupying or expanding itself into Lebanon, the Greater Israel Project, they're taking territory. let's be very clear about the international law here. Israel has been attacked from this area of southern Lebanon, and from that standpoint, they are within their rights to go in there and seize that territory. And even if Israel were to stay there long term, let's do some background here. Lebanon is not at peace with Israel. So what does that technically mean? Well, in 1948, when Israel became a state, Lebanon was one of the Arab countries, the Arab states surrounding Israel, that declared war on Israel at that point. And they were the aggressor, meaning Israel did not declare war on Lebanon. Lebanon declared war on Israel. And so being the aggressor in that conflict meant that if they lost territory in that conflict, that is a legal seizure of territory by the Israelis, who they attacked. That's the way the laws of war work. If you're the aggressor and you lose territory in a war where you started it, then you've lost that territory potentially permanently. There's nothing illegal about the defensive party in a war seizing territory in a defensive war. There's nothing illegal about them holding it. And so you might say, well, that's 1948. Well, the truth is that war with Lebanon has never ended because there is still a state of belligerence between these two countries, because Lebanon doesn't recognize Israel's right to exist, which means from a legal standpoint, purely legally speaking, there is no legal border between Lebanon and Israel, again, because Lebanon does not recognize Israel's right to exist and is in a state of belligerence. And Hezbollah attacking Israel from Lebanon, where Hezbollah has been the main military force in Lebanon for a long, long time, and Lebanon saying, well, that's not us, that's just Hezbollah, that's a foreign terrorist organization, that doesn't hold water. Because from Israel's perspective, it's like, look, you either are unable or unwilling to disarm Hezbollah. Either way, that means that we're being attacked from your territory, and we're within our rights to go in there and seize whatever we need to seize for our own security. And Israel intends to stay in this area that you see marked off on the screen. Israel intends to stay there so long as there is a Hezbollah. And that is both strategically important in terms of the strategic depth, and that's the main reason for doing it, but it also has a very important political value as leverage, because the Lebanese government only really understands one language, and that is the potential loss of territory. And that's what's gotten them off their duff and moving a little bit, that and the weakening of Hezbollah that they want to get rid of. But they're still talking out of both sides of their mouth and blaming Israel because they don't know, they have an identity crisis. They have a problem with such a large percentage of their population are Shiite Muslims who are aligned with Hezbollah, and they're worried about their country devolving into civil war. The chances that they will actually take any action in disarming Hezbollah, even though everyone talks about it, are very slim. But that's the basic state of affairs there. Now what has been happening for the last few days with this supposed ceasefire is that there really isn't a ceasefire. And let me explain. So first of all, this announcement just came out a couple of hours ago on Saturday evening. Netanyahu's office says PM instructed IDF to strike Hezbollah targets in Lebanon with force. So wait, what about the ceasefire? We'll get to that in a moment. Let's just first read this note. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has instructed the IDF to strike Hezbollah targets in Lebanon with force, his office said in a terse statement. This comes after Hezbollah launched rockets and drones at northern Israel and troops stationed in southern Lebanon today. Hezbollah has been carrying out multiple attacks per day on Israeli forces stationed in southern Lebanon amid the ceasefire, right? So Hezbollah has been carrying out multiple attacks per day on Israeli forces amid the ceasefire while claiming that it's responding to alleged Israeli violations of the truce. So what are they talking about? So let's read a longer piece on this. Hezbollah fires rockets at north. Israel hits terror targets in Lebanon amid shaky truce. A steady exchange of Hezbollah attacks and Israeli strikes persisted in northern Israel and southern Lebanon on Saturday, despite the extension of the tenuous ceasefire between warring sides by several more weeks. 2 rockets and a drone were launched from Lebanon at northern Israel on Saturday afternoon, activating sirens in several towns. The Israel Defense Forces said that it intercepted the drone and one of the rockets, while a second rocket struck an open area. No injuries were caused. The military also said it intercepted a suspicious aerial target over an area of southern Lebanon where Israeli troops are deployed. It said the target was suspected to be a Hezbollah drone. In another incident, Hezbollah launched several explosive-laden drones at Israeli troops in southern Lebanon. The IDF said the drones exploded near the forces but did not cause any injuries. The terror group has made use of small first-person view drones in its attack on Israeli troops. In its attacks, some of the drones are guided using a spool of fiber optic cable, which mitigates efforts to electronically jam their signal. Interesting. The Hezbollah terror organization has again blatantly violated the ceasefire agreement, said the IDF. At the same time, the IDF said it struck and killed several Hezbollah operatives in southern Lebanon. In one incident, the military said it struck and killed 3 Hezbollah terrorists who were traveling in a pickup truck armed with weapons. The strike took place in Yochmor, just north of the Israeli-held security zone. Now, that's a great sentence for us to unpack. The IDF attacked 3 Hezbollah terrorists who were traveling in a pickup truck armed with weapons. Now, I'm going to bring you back to the text of the ceasefire agreement when it was first announced by the State Department. And in that text, it said that Israel is allowed, according to the ceasefire agreement, to strike in a defensive way against, and what does defensive mean? It doesn't mean you wait to be attacked, against planned or imminent attacks, meaning if they see planning for an attack or an imminent attack. And I made a video at that time where I told you that what we were going to see is that Israel will implement this ceasefire agreement, and part of that implementation is striking against planned and imminent attacks. So if they see planning for an attack, they see guys with weapons, they got their machine guns, they're in a pickup truck, they're traveling, they're on their way, they're planning an attack on Israeli forces. That is it's allowed for Israel to strike them according to the ceasefire deal. And I told you in advance that the other side would start calling these ceasefire violations when Israel strikes these planners, which is exactly what we are seeing. In another case in the security zone, the military said it struck and killed a terrorist riding a motorcycle. 2 more Hezbollah armed operatives who were identified by troops in the security zone were killed in an airstrike. This is all supposedly while there's a ceasefire, right? The IDF said all the operatives posed a threat to IDF troops operating in southern Lebanon. Remember, the threat doesn't need to be imminent. It could also be a planning for an attack. Okay, that's all according to the ceasefire deal. Additionally, the IDF said it struck several buildings used by Hezbollah, including the terror group's elite Radwan force in the southern Lebanon security zone. Okay, so that's in the security zone. That's in the zone that John Conricus was showing us here. Okay, in the security zone, there Israel is destroying infrastructure, Hezbollah infrastructure, because it's supposed to be cleared of all Hezbollah presence there anyway. So they've destroyed several buildings. That has nothing to do with the ceasefire anyway. These buildings were used by Hezbollah for storing weapons and carrying out attacks. The buildings were struck to remove a threat to IDF soldiers and IDF and Israeli civilians, the military said in a statement. Lebanon's health ministry said Israeli strikes in the south had killed 4 people. And the Israelis also struck rocket launchers. And again, the military saying that these posed a real threat. They have to say that, right? That makes it a violation of the ceasefire. The incidents came despite an ongoing ceasefire in Lebanon, which U.S. President Donald Trump said Thursday night would be extended by 3 weeks, while noting that Israel could carry out strikes in Lebanon in self-defense. There you go. The IDF has said that since the truce took effect on April 17th, it has killed over 30 Hezbollah operatives who posed a threat to troops and destroyed hundreds of the terror group's sites. Hezbollah, meanwhile, has been carrying out multiple attacks per day on Israeli forces stationed in southern Lebanon amid the ceasefire, while claiming it's responding to alleged Israeli violations of the truce. This is exactly what I said would happen on the day the ceasefire was signed. You can go back and watch it. I said, here's what's going to happen. We're signing the ceasefire. No one reads the fine print, but in the fine print it says that Israel reserves the right to strike when they see any planning for attacks. and any imminent attacks. And I said, you're going to see this situation where Hezbollah is moving people around. They're moving weapons around. Israel's going to strike them. Hezbollah then claims it's an Israeli violation. They're going to strike at Israel. These ceasefires never, ever hold. This is what's happened with every ceasefire with Hezbollah forever. Okay. Trump announced the ceasefire extension after hosting Israeli and Lebanese envoys for the second round of the two countries' highest level negotiations in decades. This is all a kind of dog and pony show. Unless Hezbollah is gotten rid of, negotiating with Lebanon is a joke. They don't really have the power over their own country. They're not really sovereign. The sides in a joint statement agreed on the urgent need to revive a November 2024 ceasefire deal that required the Lebanese government to disarm Hezbollah, which they're never going to do. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on Friday accused Hezbollah of trying to sabotage the truce. And he says, we're trying to get to a peace deal. Hezbollah is trying to sabotage it. We are maintaining full freedom of action against any threat, including emerging threats. There you go, which is part of the deal. We struck yesterday and we struck today. We are determined to restore security to the residents of the North. The negotiations are the first direct sustained contact in decades between Israel and its northern neighbor, which have technically been at war since 1948 when Israel was established, as I explained earlier. And that actually has real implications on the legalities of all this, as I explained. And then it talks about the rounds of negotiations. Israel has pushed troops deeper into Lebanon and carried out massive airstrikes there after Hezbollah started firing rockets at Israel on March 2nd for the first time since the November 2024 ceasefire agreement. They were quiet for over a year. But then with the war against Iran starting on February 28th, 3 days later, they joined in. And there we go. So that's that. IDF says Hezbollah launched explosive-laden drones at troops in southern Lebanon. This happened on Friday. Hezbollah launched several more explosive-laden drones at Israeli troops. The drones struck next to the forces. Blatant ceasefire violation. And Israel took out some launchers. And here we have Israeli public opinion. American flags raised in Metula to protest U.S. influence amid anger over ceasefire extension. That might sound a little strange. It's explained in the article. Here we go. Many residents of northern Israeli towns are frustrated with the extension of Israel's ceasefire with Lebanon, Ynet reported on Friday, with some local leaders criticizing Prime Minister Netanyahu's government as yielding to Washington's influence. Okay, so there's a lot of Israelis who are uneasy about the ceasefire. They see it as weakness, as Israel needs to do what it needs to do for its own citizens' security, and that giving in to this ceasefire is not in Israel's best interest. Let me say, all ceasefires between Israel and its enemies benefit Israel's enemies. Israel is much more powerful militarily than its enemies, and every single ceasefire, whether it's the ceasefires in Gaza, ceasefires in Lebanon, ceasefires in Syria, wherever they are, ceasefire in Iran, ceasefires always benefit Israel's enemies. So we're never happy with them because functionally what they end up doing is just preventing Israel from finishing the job. That's the end result of ceasefire agreements. So we're never thrilled about them. But here it's even worse because you have these residents of the North. Let's see the rest of this piece. On Thursday night, U.S. President Trump announced a 3-week extension and a decision that caught many in the border communities by surprise. In Metula, a border town that recently marked 130 years since its establishment, Council head David Azulai oversaw the raising of a U.S. flag, not as a gesture of alliance, but as a protest symbol. In other words, it was a sarcastic sign of saying, basically, we're living under American rule. You get it? So they raised an American flag in Metula. Metula's head of council said he believes the Israeli government has surrendered too much autonomy and military leverage to the United States. Quote, "It is sad that the Israeli government and its leader are losing our independence as an independent, sovereign, democratic state," he said. Head of the Shlomi Regional Council, that's another northern town, Yossi Ne'eman, he was a little more measured. He said that while residents understand the ceasefire is temporary and hope it can bring stability, they do not see it as an end to hostilities. Right? Trump's talking about peace. I stopped another war. He urged preparations for a possible renewed conflict, given what he described as an unstable security situation. Right? Some northern residents told Ynet that the restrained nature of the IDF's response has emboldened Hezbollah, while others described frustration with government leadership, arguing that Israel must assert its own priorities rather than follow foreign directives. And it quotes a few more of these people from the north who are frustrated. And this is important. This is important in terms of Israeli public opinion. At the same time, I think that I don't necessarily think that Prime Minister Netanyahu has been handling this incorrectly. It's good that he has this pressure, and it's good that he's willing to take action, like what he said today, ordering the IDF to strike Hezbollah targets and enforcing the ceasefire as it is written, giving Israel the freedom to still operate against imminent threats and planned threats, which they are obviously doing. So that's all good. But I also understand that, and here I have to talk to my fellow Israelis here, whichever of you are watching. Look, President Trump is playing a very effective game with the Iranians right now. He is strangling them. He has his boot on their neck. This siege warfare is absolutely working. Okay, they are in a panic. They are in internal chaos. Their economy is collapsing. Things are going to come to a head sooner rather than later with that situation in a positive way. That is the main event. And let's also remember that Hezbollah without Iran is nothing. They have no other backer. They aren't an independent organization. They will shrivel up and die when the Iranian regime falls. At the very least, they will be much easier for the pathetic Lebanese government, with the help of the Israelis, to get rid of, because Iran will be gone. They are simply an arm of the Iranian regime. They're their foreign legion. And therefore, even if we just hold our fire and keep quiet and let Trump do his thing and bring down the Iranian regime, Hezbollah will be much easier to deal with after that point anyway. And there's a tendency in Israel, throughout this process since Trump got elected, where we've been in like 2 steps forward, 1 step back, sometimes 10 steps forward and 1 step back. And every time Trump makes a decision we don't like, and there's a step back, there's like this, the sky is falling panic in Israel. And the pressure is good. The pressure is good on Prime Minister Netanyahu. Let him be able, let him have the ability to look at President Trump and say, look, my people aren't happy with this. That's good. I don't mind that. But we have to also keep a level head here. Things are moving in the right direction. And if President Trump, after everything he's done, after all the good things he's done for Israel's security, if he looks at Prime Minister Netanyahu and says, listen, while this is going on, while I'm playing this game with Iran, keep things on a low boil in Lebanon, keep things quiet down there. I don't need that distraction right now. Hold off a bit while we take care of this. I have a hard time saying that Prime Minister Netanyahu is doing the wrong thing. Even though the people up north, I understand their discomfort as well. And I understand, the fear that everything's going to end and Hezbollah will still be there and Hamas will still be there in Gaza. And look, the story is not about to end so quickly. And our position improves by the day. So I think we all need to just calm down there. And finally, last news item on Lebanon, very short news item. This was announced today. Netanyahu to travel to D.C. for summit with Lebanon's Joseph Aoun, the president, in May. Security situation permitting, I-24 News understands. The summit will be held only if the security situation in the region will permit Prime Minister Netanyahu to depart Israel. And this is supposed to be taking place during the week that begins May 11th. The summit will be held. Yeah, okay, so that's so now we have a date for a summit meeting with Joseph Aoun. May 11th is the week of it. And that's what has just been announced by the Prime Minister's office. So that's the situation with Lebanon. And, again, I've said my piece. I think that we all need to just relax a little bit in terms of, the panic that sets in every time there's a decision we don't like. If in the overall picture, the trajectory of where Trump's policy is going in terms of dealing with Iran, the main thing is bringing down the Iranian regime. And if this ceasefire, as it is, and it's not much of a ceasefire, I mean, it looks like it's ending, but if playing along with Trump is what we need to do right now in order to give him the best chance possible of bringing down the Iranian regime, so be it. Is that necessarily what's going to happen? No, I could be wrong. This could be a bad thing. I'm just saying, from what we know, from paying attention, from what we know, it seems to me that it's not the end of the world. Although I am pleased that after these rocket attacks today and these drone attacks yesterday in Lebanon, that Prime Minister Netanyahu has told the IDF to take off the gloves. We haven't seen any reaction yet from the Americans, and we'll see. It should be interesting when we see such a reaction. All right, thanks for watching. Please make sure you subscribe not only to this channel, but also to Israel 365 News Channel. A lot of important content going up there. You want to stay abreast of everything we're putting up. And please, check out the description of this video. There's also a link there to subscribe to our newsletters, the Israel 365 Action newsletter and the Israel 365 News newsletter. And that'll really keep you informed and keep you well up to date. And it's a better way to stay in touch than relying on the algorithm to send you these videos. So please go ahead and do that. And I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.